If you could travel back 2,000 years, to a dusty corner of the ancient world where empires rose and fell like the desert winds, you might be surprised at how quietly one of history's greatest revolutions began.
No armies marched.
No kings issued decrees. No monuments were carved. Instead, it started with a handful of fishermen, a carpenter's son, and a message so simple yet so powerful that it would one day redraw the map of human belief. And the strangest part? Almost no one at the time noticed. That's the mystery. How did a faith born among the poor and overlooked grow into a force that would stretch across continents, shape civilizations, spark conflicts, inspire art, fuel exploration, and change the course of world history? That's what we're uncovering today. If you love stories that peel back the layers of time and reveal how the world we know came to be, remember to stay with me, and you might want to subscribe so you don't miss the next journey into the past. Picture the world of Jesus of Nazareth, the heat of the Judean sun, the crowded marketplaces, the constant tension under Roman rule. Judea was a province where rebellion simmered like a pot left too long on the fire. People prayed for deliverance, for hope, for a sign. Into that world stepped a man whose teachings did not fit the expectations of zealots or priests or politicians. "Love your enemies," he said. "Blessed are the poor. The kingdom of God is within you." It wasn't what anyone expected from a Messiah. Yet something in his words, in his presence, in the way he broke the rigid barriers between rich and poor, clean and unclean, insider and outsider, something caught fire in the hearts of those who heard him. And then came his execution. To the Roman Empire, crucifixion was a way to erase a troublemaker. But instead of ending the movement, it was the spark that sent it spreading. His followers claimed that death had not stopped him, that he had risen, appeared, spoken, and sent them out with a mission: take the message to the ends of the earth. Most new movements die in silence, but something about this one refused to fade. It grew in back rooms and quiet gatherings, whispered between traders, spoken in synagogues, and carried by travelers along the Roman roads, the superhighways of the ancient world. And at the center of this spread was a man named Paul. Once a fierce opponent of the new movement, he became its most passionate messenger. Imagine him walking mile after mile across the Mediterranean world, from cities filled with marble temples to ports thick with spices and sailors' shouts, sharing the story of a crucified teacher from Judea who, he claimed, was the Son of God. Paul founded communities in places like Corinth, Ephesus, Thessalonica, places that would one day be known not for their temples but for their churches. When you think about how far Christianity later reached, it's almost unbelievable that its global journey began with a single traveler and a handful of letters written on parchment. And here's a detail many people don't know: very early on, Christianity likely reached places far beyond the Roman world. Tradition says that Thomas traveled all the way to India. Armenia would become the first kingdom to adopt Christianity as a state religion. In Ethiopia, Christian traditions took root so deeply that they survived even when surrounded by rival empires. These early expansions weren't the work of armies or emperors. They were the work of merchants, migrants, wanderers, and believers who carried their faith not by conquest, but by conversation, storytelling, and example. Every so often, if you're enjoying this journey into the deep roots of the past, feel free to subscribe and stay close. History becomes much more magical when we explore it together. As the centuries passed, Christianity grew steadily, even though the Roman Empire considered it a threat. Christians were arrested, mocked, beaten, even killed in brutal spectacles meant to humiliate them. Yet persecution didn't crush the faith. In many ways, it strengthened it. People saw the courage of those who refused to abandon their belief even at the cost of their lives, and they wondered what could give such ordinary people such extraordinary strength. And then something happened that no one could have predicted. In the early 4th century, the Emperor Constantine, ruler of a realm stretching from Britain to the deserts of Arabia, suddenly embraced Christianity. Stories vary on why. Some say he saw a vision before battle. Some say he saw the faith as a unifying force for a divided empire. Whatever the truth, his conversion changed history. Suddenly, a faith once hunted in the shadows began to rise into the light. Churches were built. Bishops gained influence. Debates erupted about beliefs, doctrines, and the nature of Jesus himself. The Council of Nicaea, a gathering called by Constantine, tried to settle some of the biggest theological disagreements. And though those debates would continue for centuries, one thing was clear: Christianity was no longer a persecuted minority. It was becoming a central pillar of European civilization. But history is never simple. Unity rarely lasts forever. Around the year 1054, a long, slow tension finally snapped. Cultural differences, political rivalries, and centuries of disagreement on leadership and doctrine caused the Christian world to split into what we now call the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church. It wasn't a sudden explosion, more like the cracking of ice under pressure, predictable, yet still painful. This great schism shaped the spiritual map of Europe and the Near East. Eastern Christianity developed in places like Byzantium, Russia, and the Balkans. Western Christianity flourished across Western Europe. The two branches shared roots, but their paths were forever changed. And yet the story doesn't slow down there. If you're loving this deep dive, remember you can always subscribe for more stories that show how the world truly came to be. Centuries later came another great fracture, the Protestant Reformation. Imagine Europe in the early 1500s. Churches were grand, powerful, and often corrupt. Many people felt something had gone wrong, that Christianity had drifted too far from its roots. Then a German monk named Martin Luther challenged the church with his famous 95 Theses. He didn't mean to start a revolution, but once the ideas were out, they spread like wildfire through the newly invented printing press. Suddenly, Christianity wasn't just dividing into two branches, it shattered into many. Lutheran, Calvinist, Anglican, Anabaptist. New traditions emerged, each claiming to restore something lost. This wasn't just a religious change, it shook governments, reshaped kingdoms, and led to wars and peace treaties that defined the political map of Europe. Christianity was no longer one thing. It had become a vast family tree with branches twisting in all directions. But perhaps the most dramatic expansion came with the Age of Exploration. When European ships crossed oceans in the 15th and 16th centuries, they carried soldiers, merchants, explorers, and missionaries. Some came with sincere belief, others came with the backing of empires seeking land and wealth. Christianity spread across the Americas, Africa, and Asia, sometimes peacefully, sometimes violently, sometimes woven with acts of generosity, and sometimes stained by conquest and exploitation. This duality is part of the story too. The same faith that inspired hospitals, schools, and charity also traveled alongside colonization. History is always a mix of light and shadow, and understanding the spread of Christianity means facing both. By the 19th and 20th centuries, Christianity had become one of the most widespread religions on earth. But its global shape was not controlled by Europe alone. In places like Latin America, Africa, and Korea, Christianity took new forms, blended with local cultures, and grew in ways no emperor or missionary could have planned. Today, some of the fastest-growing Christian communities are far from the lands where the faith first took root. The story has circled the globe, transformed by every people it has touched. And through all this, schisms, reforms, exploration, conflict, and cultural exchange, the core message that began in Judea has remained surprisingly recognizable. After 2,000 years, billions of people still look back to the same teacher who walked dusty roads with fishermen, spoke of love stronger than death, and offered a vision of a world transformed from the inside out. It's remarkable when you think about it. A movement born on the margins of an empire now touches nearly every corner of the globe. No single ruler, no single nation, no single era can claim credit for its survival. Instead, it's a story carried by countless voices, countless journeys, countless acts of faith both great and small. Families who passed their beliefs to their children. Teachers who shared hope with communities. Travelers who whispered ancient words in new lands. Ordinary people who believed the story was worth spreading. And if you're still with me on this journey, consider subscribing to stay part of these explorations. History is full of mysteries like this, quiet beginnings that become global transformations. When you look at the world today, its cultures, holidays, art, music, politics, debates, you're seeing the echoes of decisions made centuries ago in crowded markets, royal courts, ship decks, monasteries, and remote villages. You're seeing the legacy of that small group of early followers who believed their teacher had changed everything. Whether one views the story from a religious perspective, a cultural one, or simply as a vast human drama, the spread of Christianity is one of the most sweeping transformations in the history of civilization. And it's still unfolding. New movements, new interpretations, new communities continue to rise. The story has never stopped. It simply keeps adapting to new worlds, new languages, new challenges. So as we close this journey, imagine looking back across those 2,000 years, from dusty Judean roads to the marble halls of Byzantium, from medieval villages to storm-tossed ships crossing the Atlantic, from hidden underground churches in ancient Rome to modern megacities filled with neon light. Through all that time, through all those people, the story has moved like a river, sometimes calm, sometimes violent, always reshaping the land it touches. And maybe that's the real mystery, how a message so simple could become so vast. How a story rooted in one place could become the story of humanity itself. Thank you for exploring this with me. If you want to keep uncovering the hidden forces that shaped our world, you're always welcome here. Until the next journey into the past, keep your sense of wonder alive, because history is full of secrets still waiting to be found.